So this is our call to order for the meeting. Does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Raise your hand if so. Not seeing any. Good. And we have two new members joining the committee. And Emily, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can just share with the committee a little bit about your background and perhaps share why you were interested in joining the committee. And then if Mike joins, we can have him do the same. And I expect, Emily, that it would be helpful for you to receive introductions from everyone else.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, we'll start with you, and then we can turn it over to the whole committee.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm born and raised here in Perth County. I've been living in Stratford now with my husband for about 5 years, and we have an 8-month-old daughter. I work in the waste management business, so I've been working with Walker Environmental for 5 years. A couple years, I've been doing quality assurance in the compost area of the business, and then in the last few years, I've been working on the Southwestern Landfill project in Oxford County. I wanted to join the Environment Committee, mostly because I love the city, and I'm interested in making a small impact for the future for my daughter. So, yes, hello everyone.
Well, welcome. We're excited to have you on the committee. And I see that Mike Sullivan is now on. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Welcome to the committee. We're just starting by introducing ourselves, and Emily Wen, as she's a new member, so I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background and why you wanted to join the committee.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. And my background is I'm old. I worked for almost 40 years first at CBC Radio and then as a union rep. And then I became a member of parliament for 4 years. And then I decided to go back to school and got a master's in environmental studies. And it was that master's of environmental studies made me realize just how urgent what faces us is. And I'd like to be of assistance to the city of Stratford in acting on the climate emergency declaration that it has already declared, so that we can take actions, concrete actions, to make Stratford the most environmentally friendly place in Canada.
Well, welcome. It's nice to have you. So why don't we go, I don't know if everyone's participant list is in the same order, but I have Casey. Will you just introduce yourself to the committee next? And we can just go based on that. I have Casey, then Tatiana. Is she on?
She is. She just doesn't have her video on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Anita. So we'll go in that order if that is how everyone else has their list.
Okay. That's not my order, so I don't know if that's, so maybe everyone's different. I don't know.
Well, why don't you just pass it to someone else then?
Okay. Okay. Well, it's nice to finally meet you, Mike and Emily. We've been doing lots of emailing back and forth. It's nice to see your faces. So I'm the recording secretary for all the advisory committees, and yeah, I work at the city. I'm at City Hall at the clerk's office, and I'm part-time there and available for any questions if you ever have anything. I'm going to pass it off to Craig because he's beside me on my screen.
There we go. Yes, Craig Merkley. I guess I'm representing on this committee another group, an environmental group called Avon River Environmental Association.
Can you turn your mic up a bit, Craig? We can't hear you.
Oh, you know what? I know. I'm sorry. I'm off to the side here. Is that better?
That's great.
Okay, sorry. I'm representing another citizens group called AREA, which is an acronym for Avon River Environmental Association. And that group's been active under the guidance of a guy named Alan Carr for darn near 20 years now. And I guess Alan got us that citizens group together to address what at the time he considered water quality issues in Lake Victoria. And I've been helping them out, and Alan was on the committee for a while, and then he threw the torch over to me to carry on representing them. So that's what I do as far as the municipal end of it. Professionally, as most of you know, I work at the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, doing that as well, rural water quality issues, but I mainly work with farmers on various environmental issues and projects and research things like that. And so I try and bring that stuff and mix it into the what's going on here as well. So I'll stop there.
And who do you want to go next?
Okay, well, my screen says Anna.
Sorry to unmute. Welcome, Emily and Mike. I'm Anna Stratton. I think I'm in the middle of my second term on the committee. I'm a citizen representative, and I'm a retired film producer and worked in the arts community for I know, something like 50 years, I guess, 40 years. Anyway, I have been convening the carbon reduction working group, which we'll talk about later, and hope maybe you'd like to join us. So welcome. Pass it on to somebody. Emily, you're beside me.
Yes, I am beside you on here as well. So I am Emily Chandler. I think this is my second term as chair of the committee, but I've been on it for maybe 5 years now. Professionally, I just returned after a maternity leave to go back to work at Upper Thames River Conservation Authority as a research and communications assistant. And this year, of course, the return to work looks weird. So it's just going into our spare bedroom / office, but excited to be back at work. And I will pass it to Jody.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome to Emily and Mike. I'm a city councillor here in Stratford, and my other job professionally is a communications specialist. I'm very interested in the environment. I'm also the chair of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. And yeah, I'm interested in all things environmental. And I was also a member of the area committee for years and years under Alan Carr. So there you go. And let's see, who's next? On my screen, I think it's Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Crowder. I am my educational background was in politics, and I have been in Stratford now since the spring of 2018, and I was a candidate in the last election, federal election. I'm on a couple of other community boards, as well as the accessibility advisory committee in the city, and it's my second year on coming into my second year on the environment committee, and I'm happy to have Mike and Emily join us. And like Mike said, I'm just and Emily, I'm just hoping to achieve, accomplish something for the community, and hope to follow through meaningfully on the climate emergency declaration. Let's see. I believe Bonnie is the closest person that on my screen that hasn't spoken yet. So let's go to Bonnie.
It's funny how we're all so mixed up on the different screens. Hey, it's too bad you can't click and drag and make everybody the same spots. I'm Bonnie Henderson. I'm the council rep. I've been on energy and environment for 14 years as the council rep. And before that, I honestly don't remember how many years I've been on this because I was a citizen rep for a long time because I was involved in the group called Groundswell, and we were trying to get the city to pass a bylaw about not using pesticides. And I also was the one that got the anti-idling bylaw in town that we're going to talk about today. So I had worked with Eric Eberhardt, and he told me how to get a bylaw passed. So I did. I had no clues. There were so many committees of the city to go through. I started in October and I had it done by July. I didn't realize that that was really fast compared to how it usually goes through, but I thought I was supposed to go to every meeting, which I did, and answered all their questions. So it moved right along. So it was very interesting. And I was on the health and safety committee at my workplace for many years. And one day when we were out in the plant, she said, well, the health and safety goes up this far and then the rest is the environment. So then I was just like, well, what are we putting out in the air? So then I got involved in the environment committee then. And then I ended up on the National Union for CAW on their environment committee. And it was a little embarrassing because they were fighting the Sydney tar ponds and they were out west. They were taking care of the water and all these things. And all I knew was that we needed to recycle and put things in a box, but they worked out okay. So I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot from that. And with the glass plant that's going on right now, I was able to reach out to them and ask questions of them too. So it was very helpful. So I think that's enough. I'll pass it on to, let's see, who's my next one? Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Vani Insano, and I represent the Civic Beautification and Environmental Awareness Committee, which started in the early 90s, 1991. Who started, the late Ted Blow started that committee, getting people from the community together. In my professional life, I also work for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. I am the supervisor of community education based out of Wildwood Conservation Area. And I've been doing environmental education since my first summer job in 1982. And I've only ever worked for conservation authorities. So I came to the Upper Thames in '88. I was with the Toronto region before that and the North Bay Mattawa before that. So my role has changed over the years. I'm doing a lot of community partnerships now, working with Stratford and Perth County, and the trees you see planted in Stratford that we started at Lorne and Olone, that was the first community forestry project for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority in our watershed. And we did 30 acres of planting trees. We're still doing it with the city, and we get schools involved. And there's a lot of children and students that planted trees around the Stratford. And we'll continue with new projects. Sammy, you're below me.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm the youth representative on this committee. I currently am going to school at Stratford District Secondary School, which is the old Northwestern building. I'm in grade 10 there, and I try to get involved with community environmental groups. So Climate Momentum is one that I've been involved with for, I think, a year, 2 years maybe now. But I'm just really concerned about the environment and all climate issues right now because it's starting to get to the point where we need to take action. So that's why I'm here. Everybody around me's spoken. Maybe, how about Mike?
I could do that. Welcome, Emily, and welcome, Mike. And it's nice that we now have two of each on the committee. My name is Mike Jarna, and I've been actively involved in environmental things since 1974. first as a teacher of science and environmental science, also as a 22-year veteran on City Council in Stratford, a longtime member of the Energy and Environment Committee, which I chaired for a number of years. Then we moved off to the Bruce Peninsula, where I sailed Georgian Bay for 15 years. And we're back now. While I was up north, I was a member there of the committee to bring about zero waste because they're running out of landfill lifespan. And I found that very interesting. And as a matter of fact, was lucky enough to be able to connect frequently with Katie here in Stratford for information on that. I also spent some time as a representative of Stratford on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities National Environment Committee. And I think I've got a good understanding and lots of passion for the whole thing, especially since we have 7 great-grandchildren. But, well, it's getting to the point where physically it isn't what it used to be. But I think I've got lots of ideas to still contribute. So I think, I don't know, is Tatiana there to speak? Yes, she
Good
is.
afternoon, everyone. Yes, I am here. Happy New Year. My name's Tatiana. For our new members, I am the clerk for the City of Stratford, and I have been employed with the city since about 2017. I'm here to be a resource for the committee to answer any questions you may have to the best of my ability. If I don't know the answer, I will endeavor to find out who does and get you that information. I'll keep my video off just so that it's easier for the chair to identify the members who want to speak. But whenever you need me back on, I'll just re-show my video. And I believe Anita is left to go on the list of attendees.
Hi, my name's Anita Jacobson, and I'd also like to welcome our new members, Emily and Mike. I'm currently the head gardener at the Stratford Festival. I've been doing that for, well, I guess since 2005. It was a very strange year last year, but I got to tell you, I've never seen so many people outside before, as compared to previous years when there weren't people coming to the theater. Usually, you usually had the place to yourself, but certainly with the pandemic, I saw a difference in the number of people out in the environment. So I think now is a good time to put our concerns forward, because I think people are maybe more in tune with what's around them. Like Jeff, I've just been, this is my second year on the committee, so it was sort of a bit of an odd first year for me anyway. And so I'm just happy to, my background, I have done a master's in zoology, and for a while I was in the teaching profession. So that's sort of my professional background aside from the gardening bit. I've also been a longtime member of the Stratford Field Naturalists. So anything sort of with nature and the environment is certainly very much up my alley. So I'm just looking forward to moving forward on some of these pressing issues that we've been examining. So that's it for me.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. That's such a wonderful, warm welcome for our new members, but also a really nice reminder of the expertise and the passion that we have around the table on this committee. So I appreciate you all being here. I think that the next item in the agenda, I actually turn over to Casey, is that correct, for the election of chair and vice chair?
That's correct. Okay, everybody, we are going to start with nominations for the chair for 2021. Obviously, Emily is the current chair for 2020 and Councillor Burbach was the vice. So we're going to start with chair. Are there any nominations from members for committee chair for 2021?
I nominate Emily Chandler.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for a motion to close the nominations? Jody, Bonnie? Emily, will you allow your name to stand for 2021?
I will, but I thought that might take a bit longer, but I will. Thank you.
Okay, a motion to elect Emily as the 2021 chair of E&E. Bonnie, Jody, all in favor? Perfect. Okay, now we're going to do vice chair. Do I have a nomination for vice chair for 2021?
I'll nominate Jody.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I was going to nominate Anna if she wanted to be nominated.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Can I just ask a question? I thought we needed to have one of the chair or the co-chair be one of the counselors. No? Is that not? No?
No.
Okay.
Okay, motion to close nominations. A mover, a seconder? Anita? Seconder? Jody? Okay. Okay. Jody, will you allow your name to stand for vice chair nomination?
Yeah, if Anna doesn't want to have her name stand, I will definitely leave it there, but I would prefer if she would like to take the position.
Okay,
I don't know how to say that officially, but
yeah, I'll ask Anna now. Anna, will you allow your name to stand for vice chair?
I would be honored, and I understand why you don't, why you would suggest that, Jody. You must be incredibly busy. I would be honored if that's acceptable.
So Jody, will you allow your name to stand?
no, let's take it down.
Okay. Okay, so now I need a motion to elect Anna as vice chair of the E&E for 2021. Mike and Jeff, all in favor? All right, back to you, Emily.
Thank you.
All right, welcome, Vice Chair Anna. I'll let you run the rest of the meeting. Joking.
Very touched. And oops, I have to unmute. Sorry, just a sec. Am I on? I can't tell.
You are on. Yep.
That's why I can't share it, because I don't know how to operate this button. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm delighted and honored to be the vice chair. Thank you. And I'll do whatever you tell me, Emily.
You're gonna regret saying that. Okay, back to our agenda. So has everyone had a chance to go through the previous minutes? Have our new members read through them? Yeah, okay. And any changes, or can I have a motion to accept? Motion to accept, Jody? Yeah, no changes? Okay, seconded. And all in favor? Okay, that's passed. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to Anna for an update from one of the working groups, the carbon reduction working group. So Anna, you have the floor.
For Mike and Emily, last year, after a resolution we passed, we decided we had a number of different working groups or subcommittees, and we decided that really our focus was in two areas: greening our community and reducing carbon reduction. And so we created these two working groups. There's the ecological working group on the greening side, and on the other side, we have the carbon reduction working group. We didn't really have an opportunity to meet much in the last year, so we're really beginning anew now. So I welcome anyone to join this group, and we would convene a meeting before the next meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee and set the agenda for the coming year. One of the things that's on the table with Sammy is, may mention later, is the idea of creating some kind of community forum in collaboration with Climate Momentum to talk about how we actually engage the community in the business community and individuals in creating their own climate action plans in accord with the city moving forward in climate action. So that's one of the things that's on the table for the committee, the working group to take on. But so anybody who's interested in working with the group, we would welcome, and I'll send out a notice about a meeting, an online meeting sometime in the next 3 weeks, I guess. Any questions? Could I just ask further to that, Casey, is it possible when we have committee meetings to use the city's Zoom or web services? Because I have Zoom, but it's limited to 40 minutes.
Did we lose Casey?
Oh.
I think we did.
Yeah,
Maybe Tatiana could answer that question. Where did Casey go?
And Anna, didn't you sign in on the link that was sent to you from Casey?
Yes, yeah. I'm on it.
I think she's wanting to know if she can, if the city can help her do the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, because I have a Zoom account, but it's just it's a private one. It's limited to 40 minutes. I'm just wondering if we can use the city's Zoom services to have the committee, the working group.
You should automatically be on it, I would think.
Let's have Tatiana answer our question.
Maybe oh yeah. So
for the chair, we'll have to look at our resources right now. We are a little limited with the amount of electronic meetings that we're holding. But I will confirm with staff if we are able to host these meetings, and then we'll get back to the committee with an answer. And as Casey appears to be having some technical difficulties, I will be taking over as recording secretary. So I'll now be leaving my video on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Craig, I'm going to turn it to you for the ecological working group. If you can do similar to Anna to provide our new members with an overview of some of the things your working group has, or the ecological working group has done in the past.
Okay, the ecological working group's been going for a while. We've got a wide range of projects that have been going on. Everything from, I guess, trying to naturalize some of the areas of Stratford to urban tree planting, some infilling of spots where we felt that there would be good for tree planting. And we've been working in concert with the Parks Department on that. One of the biggest areas, I suppose, or focus is the health of the Avon River, the water quality component of that. And to that effect, I guess our biggest projects have been trying to stabilize the shoreline banks of the Lake Victoria, the Avon River. And so over the years, we've done a number of projects around the lake, trying to stop bank erosion along there, but also add some biodiversity to the area, in addition to actually aquatic habitats. So things like adding over, what do you call it, cover areas where bugs and fish can provide habitat under the water. And I guess our most recent project, if I can give an update on that right now, is that we're going to be doing another 60-meter section on the north shore of Lake Victoria behind the houses, if you can picture where that is, across from the new theater. Emily, did you pass that around? Okay, so maybe I asked Emily to pass around the latest plans that we're going to be doing for that work. You'll notice it's an extension of the work that we did about 3 years ago over on the North Shore. And I think the unique feature of this particular piece of work is that because there are a couple of docks along there behind the houses, we got to thinking that it would be nice to not only add or keep up the accessibility part of the component of that project, in that the path is wide and stable, but increase the accessibility, direct accessibility, I guess, to the lake itself from a recreational standpoint. And so we've added, or tried to add, we'll see how it works out, a boat launch. So it'll be it's in your package. You'll see there's a graphic of a kayaker, and hopefully that kayaker will be able to slide into the water without flipping over as a result of what we're doing. And that's a feature that's new for anything that we've done so far along there. But the main purpose of it, again, is to stabilize that shoreline with a wooden crib wall. There'll be some facing of round stone along the front of it, which does provide aquatic habitat for a lot of little bugs and invertebrates, which, believe it or not, attract a heck of a lot of minnows. So if you poke your nose over the edge of the stuff that we've done in the past, you'll see that there's an awful lot of fish down there. Granted, they're not 2-foot pike, but they're small fish, and I think they all count. And the plan is we're actually going to be starting next week to get the timber up to the staging area, sort of beside those houses at the bottom end of James Street. And we'll hopefully be pounding nails by the end of the week. We'll get the cribs installed or constructed over the next couple of weeks, and then we need to wait for some really good cold weather. We will be using the same contractor, Frank McKay, with his hi-ho to do the installation. And we just want to make sure the existing bank is good and secure for him, so we don't damage what's already there. So we just need the right weather conditions to do that. And hopefully it'll be installed before the weather turns in March, or the water goes up after that. And then after that's done, that whole section should be in pretty good shape. So we will watch it mature over time. We hope to add in appropriate places some perhaps cattails or some dogwood, and native plantings like we've started on the other 60-meter section as well, which we are continuing to work on. And I think that's about it for that update, Emily. I guess the other component, I'll just carry on here for a second. The other component with the ecological group is working on, we've identified invasive species as an issue in Stratford, and specifically in the native natural areas such as TJ Dolan, the old grove at the end of Center Street. And we've had some projects in there where we've supported the removal or treatment of invasive species such as European buckthorn, Phragmites, and there's a few other ones in there, but Japanese knotweed's a big one. And so we're trying to get that under control throughout that whole area. And I've been dealing directly with Quinn Malott on that issue. And that will be an ongoing project because it takes a couple of years to get that type of thing under control. It's just not a one-shot deal. And the committee's been very supportive of that over the last few years, and I think it's making an impact. So I think that's about it, unless I've not missed any obvious ones. Tree planting, perhaps. Yeah, Anita.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the invasive species work, and I'm just wondering if we could do something that would bring it more into the minds of members of the community, whether it's like involving other groups that are interested in natural areas or ecology, or even like environment clubs in the schools, or I don't know if Boy Scouts are still a thing, or Girl Guides, scouting people to actually go out so that they could be involved in the control. First of all, it would help people to recognize what an invasive species is, and then look for that, on their own properties or and then know how to deal with it or bring forward other areas that might be problematic.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's something I've been wrestling with myself. I think it's an important point you're making. Education is always the kind of the basis for ultimately controlling this stuff. Part of the issue with controlling those things is that it's just not a physical job of going out there with a team of people and pulling the stuff out. In some cases, that by doing that, you're encouraging it to propagate. You need to have other ways of doing it, and unfortunately, one of them is chemical treatment of it, and which of course is controversial, but sometimes it's called for. So it's done in a very controlled way, and it's not something that we can really involve the community in, other than do what we've tried to do through Emily, is just put out some press clippings that will hopefully be picked up and tell the community what we're doing and why. But I think we can do a better job of that. It's kind of one of those things that you kind of need to be on top of. And I really agree with you. It'd be nice to educate the community as to what is an invasive species and which are the ones we're concerned about and why. We've done some videos through our work where we've shown what can happen when they get away. And it's pretty shocking. And it's a very important, I think, an important task to keep on top of. But if we can engage the community in some way that we're not doing now, I think that'd be a very worthwhile project to bite off. Yeah. So if you've got ideas, I'm all ears.
Just as a bit of a background, for the budget, we receive approximately $18,000 from the city to operate as a committee. And each year, 10,000 of that goes towards the Avon River rehab work that we do. And so $10,000 of the 2021 budget has been planned to be allocated for the project that Craig was updating us on. At the end of last year, we talked a bit about how the committee wanted to spend money, 2021's budget. And one of the main things that we wanted to focus our energies on was invasive species. So we had talked about earmarking a chunk of money for another round of invasive species work. As Craig alluded to, we did do a press release in conjunction with the city, and it received, I was a bit nervous because it does involve the use of pesticides, but it received really positive feedback and a decent amount of coverage. It was picked up by one of the online news sources. But Anita, your point about, I couldn't even identify the invasive species if I were in TJ Dolan. I couldn't do it. So I think it's a really beneficial thing that we could pursue. Your question about what groups are kind of in operation, I think that Bonnie would probably have the best idea in terms of like brownies and Girl Guides. Obviously things are different right now because of the pandemic. But Bonnie, can you speak at all in terms of those groups of school-age children that could maybe be reached?
Yeah, so we actually, right now, everything's virtual, but in good times, yeah, we can hit the scouts. We actually work with the schools and bring them down to TJ Dolan. The pulling's always a tough thing to do because the only thing you can get schools to pull is garlic mustard. If it's there, and that'll make a difference if it's not blooming. But yeah, and also like Anita, I think with the Stratford Field Naturalists, when we could start doing hikes again, we could do an invasive species walk and open it up to the public. And I think that would work.
Mike, I see your hand up. Mike Jorna. Mike, you're muted.
I was trying to unmute the wrong place, but I was saying that, Anita, your educational background is showing we need to educate people as to what to do. And I really think that now that council has got its act together on the environmental declaration about greening and carbon footprint, within the next year or so, maybe we should try and convince council to set aside a budget item wherein they would educate the citizens at large. I think that everybody's heard so much about environmental concerns that they would actually read and listen if the city of Stratford spoke on behalf of its resolution to be green and low carbon. And we could focus on different issues like gardens with native species rather than offshore and strange species, which would lead to the invasiveness of some species. We could talk about the letter that we received about idling. We could educate about drive-throughs, which wastes a whole lot of gas and adds carbon to the atmosphere. There are all kinds of things that should be happening in this city that I think the citizens would be cooperative upon if only they understood. And I think that an education program at the city level would be a very worthwhile thing.
Bonnie?
And I think we don't want to underestimate the Horticultural Society as well and get them involved if we're doing anything like that with the invasive species.
So, Mike, your point of the ongoing kind of public education, would you see starting as a regular environmentally focused post on the city's channels as a good starting point?
I would indeed. Now, when I was up in the Bruce and a member of the environmental committee there, mind you, as a much smaller community, we had a program whereby mostly the members of the committee, when they had something they wanted to say to the community about the issues that the committee was dealing with, would take it upon themselves to write a column, however short or how long that might be. When I hear people on this committee introducing themselves, I think there's a whole lot of knowledge right on this committee and a whole lot of commitment, and I could see that the city might provide a channel for some of this coming from people on an individual basis as members of this committee.
Bonnie?
Yeah, like part of what we were doing, obviously not because of COVID right now, but we were trying to have a speaker come in the spring and the fall, like our committee was putting that on. And I'm wondering, because of the restriction stuff, I'm wondering if we can do, you know, a small video and Mike could just post it on wherever he does it, on like Twitter and MySpace and Facebook, and maybe we could even have it on our energy and environment page or something. Maybe we could have something like that. I guess it'd be pretty hard to show invasive species right now, but there might be other topics we could show because, and the Horticultural Club, I would think would be really good at picking out plants that are invasive species, because I know we talked about, oh, what's that kind of white plant that we get down at Ede Dome they have to kill all the time. But there's another plant that looks like it that's apparently okay, but that one is the invasive species one. You know, it's got the poison if you touch the flower. I forget what you call it, knotweed, is it? Anyway, but I was just wondering if we could do some kind of videos or something in the meantime. Just an idea.
I'm going to pass it to Jody. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think the communication planning person is coming forward now, because I do think it's a great idea. And we have 2 working groups. So the idea with the working groups is that maybe each group could come up with a plan of something like a roughly sketched out plan. This is what we would like to talk about. The other thing about working groups is kind of neat is that doesn't I'm pretty sure that we can also involve people who aren't in this committee. So experts or people who are interested that are members of other groups that could work with us in putting together a communication plan. And that would kind of like, so on the carbon side, you'd have that information separate from the stuff that the Ecological is doing. I think that'd be a great place to start.
Back to Vonnie with a V.
Yeah, I think I would go one step further. Instead of a video, more of a webinar or ask the expert out in the field. Like, we can do that nowadays and be interactive instead of just having a video and people look at the video. I think it would go along a further way, have longer impact if you can actually interact when you're out in the field and people can see that.
As a concrete next step to pursue this idea, why don't I reach out to Mike at the city to just get a sense of his, I mean, he's been very open and willing to post things that we've done in the past, like the invasive species work, or the Avon River project stuff. So why don't I see, because that's the channel that we use. Energy and Environment doesn't have its own social media channels. So why don't I reach out to him and see, just get a sense of kind of the parameters that it would involve and the frequency that could be available. And I will let you guys know, and then we can go from there. Because even if it's like once a month, maybe, then we have 2 working groups. That's just six things for the year, right?
Anita, do the field naturalists, did they make an attempt to meet throughout the year this year virtually at all? I know in the past we've partnered with them on either hosting or sponsoring speakers as part of their winter speaking series. I'm just wondering, are they active at all still during this period?
No, they've canceled all their meetings for the upcoming season. Now that through the fall, they were doing some socially distanced outings, but currently there aren't any planned. But if we reached out to them to do some sort of, again, socially distanced outing, they would probably be on board with that.
You think they'd be on board with like what Vonnie is talking about with some sort of webinar? I don't know how active they are or comfortable they are with this type of format or not. Do you think that would fly?
It would be worth reaching out to them. So, yeah.
Anita, would you be up for reaching out to them in the meantime, as I'm reaching out to Mike at the city?
Yeah, so to reach out to them to see if they'd be interested in doing a webinar to highlight invasive species. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I guess where I'm coming from, I'm just thinking of you know, a fellow I work with, Brandon Williamson, has been quite involved in invasive species control in the environmental sensitive areas in London. And I've seen him talk, and he does a pretty good presentation on invasive species control in those areas. It's quite interesting. I mean, they do some pretty major attempts at some of the larger patches of invasive species, and I don't know if it's applicable or not really to what we're talking about, but it's all interesting information and might, I don't know, just it might be a good partnership. We've partnered with them in the past and it's worked out quite well. Whether or not they would be interested in hearing a speaker like that through a format like this or not, I don't know, but maybe you can just throw some feelers out there anyway.
Okay.
And something to keep in mind or remind ourselves of, like pre-COVID, every year at least, we would try to have 1 or 2 public events focused on different topics, where we would have an expert come and speak to a public event. So we not only have experience doing that, but also we always allocated a little bit of a budget for an honorarium for speakers. So that's something to keep in mind too, if that might create kind of open up potential speakers. Anna, do I see your hand up?
I seem to have a delay. No, I just wanted to continue on the idea of the sponsoring this webinar in collaboration with Climate Momentum. I mean, that was the idea of it very much, is about community education and trying, I mean, following on the idea of the gathering in or the webinar that Mike Sullivan circulated about smart energy in Kingston, that kind of idea, or what London Environmental Network has done. But I mean, Anne Carbear's idea from Climate Momentum was to organize a community webinar that we could invite the community in and deal with, perhaps deal with business and workplace and or community events and what individuals can do and what businesses might do. And that was her idea. And so I'm hoping that when we can convene the carbon reduction group, we can talk further about that idea and how we might move that forward. I mean, last year we were talking very much about having a community meeting before the pandemic hit. So see if we can do it virtually.
So Anna, maybe that's the big one, or maybe that's one of the online interactive ones. And then we still work on producing a written educational posting on a regular basis, a monthly, with the idea of having kind of a bigger event or two through the year.
Sounds good.
Okay. A good starting point, I think. So that is it for the working group updates. I'm not seeing anyone raise their hands, so we're moving on. Business arising from previous minutes. So the update on the climate action plan, the portion of the update that I have are the results, just the preliminary results from the climate change survey that you remember Rebecca Garlick had online. So as a result of everyone's efforts, there have been 911 responses, which is pretty incredible. She is working on analyzing the results. She hopes to have them next week. I asked if she had any plans to present to council, but she has not. She's editing, revising the plan, so it's ready to go to council. Once she has the survey results to add to it, then all council members across the county are able to review and add or change based on local needs. If she receives edits from the council, she'll have to make those and then have the plan ready to go for adoption in February. She said she'll see if she's able to present to all councils come February, because there are 7 separate ones that all cooperated on this project. And she is still, it sounds like she doesn't know if her contract will be extended or not. Her contract is ending on February, so it will depend on agendas and how busy they are for the month. Hopefully come February, the climate plan will be publicly available. I will also include the emissions breakdowns for each municipality. So if this emission report does not get presented before, it will still be available publicly. I will send that information around to all of you so that you can read through her response. I let her know that we as a committee made the recommendation that her contract be extended, as well as the city look at an additional environmental position being added to city staff. And I wanted to turn it to Jody to see if you have any other update in terms of the climate action plan, because that's all I have heard. Or maybe Tatiana. I'll turn it to Jody first and then see.
Okay, thank you. So what I've heard, well, first of all, we had budget meetings, and at the budget meetings, we did request that we would continue with our environmental coordinator in cooperation with the other municipalities as well. So that has been added to the budget. And then there was some discussion. I let everybody know that I think even if the other municipalities decide not to go ahead, that I think that it's important that we would invest a little bit more money to be able to have her work here with us, because this climate action plan it also needs to be not only presented, but it needs to be followed through on, and we do need somebody leading the way on that. As far as, so that's a climate action plan. So we are waiting. We do have an emission report from Rebecca, and I think that was going to be put together with the report from the responses from the survey as well, with the actual plan. So I did reach out to Chris, because a couple of meetings ago, Chris Bantock, the city clerk, came to talk to us because he was taking over the file. And so they were gathering more pieces of information. So this is the climate action plan, as well as you know, we declared a climate emergency. And as part of that emergency, we decided that we would set some targets. And so that was the other piece of information that we were hoping that we could get to as soon as possible, to set targets on what our reductions could be like. So I did receive a response from Chris. He says, unfortunately, I don't have a meeting date to share at this time for the update on the climate emergency. They're waiting for updates on a couple of related items, but are continuing to work towards its completion. The climate change coordinator is continuing to work on her plan as well. And we're also waiting for results from the community survey that you just mentioned. So that was released at the end of last year. Yeah, the survey was released at the end of last year, not the report. Since we're delayed, I'm expecting we'll be able to include these results to share with council with our report when it's brought forward. So there's no meeting date quite yet. They are working on a lot of different pieces of information to bring together to report all at once. That's sort of my understanding of what's happening. I don't know, maybe Tatiana can add to that if I've missed anything.
Through the chair, that summarizes it perfectly.
Okay, good job, Jody. So we will continue to ask for an update and watch for when that may be being presented to council. And you can let us know when a date is set. I'm asking Jody and Bonnie, given that you're on council. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, did I read this last line? He said, as soon as we have a confirmed meeting date for this, I'll be sure to advise the committee for their awareness.
Okay. No, that's good. Okay. An update on the 2020 projects and budget. So I've alluded a little bit to some of the projects that we have. Oh, this says 2020, but really it should be 2021, shouldn't it? That's our new year. So Bonnie, do you want to give an update? Do you have much of an update on the LID project in Stratford?
Yeah, for the new members, Emily and Mike. So we're looking at doing a solution to a drainage problem at the skate park on Shakespeare Street, Shakespeare and Downey. And we're looking at low impact development. So having the water actually infiltrate instead of run off. So we're looking at a type of swale to bring it into these little cells of rain gardens that will infiltrate the water, and whatever cannot infiltrate will go into the storm system, but will not go into the storm system. There'll be different size rain gardens. At the request of engineering staff, we did some soil samples because it is near the rail line. And so we just got some results back that shows the little higher levels and things that we don't want to see. But I think we'll do a leachate analysis too to see what that'll show. And then the whole design will depend on what the soil samples show. Okay.
Thank you. So we assigned 2020 budget for the drawings for that, and 2021 we talked about setting aside I think 2,000 or 3,000 for that.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So typically we usually have a meeting, not our first meeting of the year, but have a meeting that's pretty much dedicated to figuring out the budget for the year. And obviously there's some wiggle room, but usually February or March's meeting, we do that to earmark the money for the year. Because as you can see, a lot of these projects are ongoing and underway. So we'll formalize that sooner than later. The Avon River project, really, Craig, you kind of already provided an update. And same for the invasive species. Do you have a date of when they may next be working on it or no?
As I said, we're going to start next week on the construction of the cribs, and then the rest of it's weather dependent.
Okay. And for the invasive species, that's not determined, right?
They'll be going in the spring again to do a second round, or whatever round it is, of treatment, and then also make an assessment as to where things stand from there. So we'll know later on in the spring.
All right. And Sammy, can you provide a Compost Cow project? And something we need to do on that is to figure out a time for your teacher and you to present to the committee as well. So I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, so there's no update for that right now. Since school's online now, nobody's going to be at the school and nobody will be cooking or anything. So there won't be much going in and it won't be in use a lot for the next month, unfortunately. But I think we have the bins ordered. I'm not sure if they have arrived, but when we come back in February, hopefully we can get those out and in use. But as of right now, there's not an update.
So maybe in early to late spring, there might be an update. It'd be useful to have you present to the committee.
For sure.
Emily, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, can you just give a brief little overview of what the Compost Cow is?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. So the Compost Cow it's a big cylinder thing. It has cow prints all over it. That's why it's called the Compost Cow. So there's a handle on the side and you can put all your compost, so like food scraps, and you can even put like thin cardboard and paper scraps in it. And that just gets turned and it turns into compost, which can then be used in the greenhouse at Stratford District Secondary School. And we are the first public school to have one in Ontario, but there is, I think they have 2 at the University of Waterloo. But yeah, it's a really big composter for the school.
Yeah, and Energy and Environment provided some funding to get the bins that will be used as part of the project. Okay, thank you, Sammy. The proposed gas plant update. Okay, so it's at our December meeting that we passed the 2 motions about the glass plant. Essentially, I have to open an email, bear with me. So we had 2 motions where we were saying that E&E recommended that Council reject the current cost sharing agreement proposal. And then a secondary motion that requested if Council agreed to a cost sharing agreement with the Chenier Canada company that they look to significantly reduce the amount of water used and emissions created as a result of their operations. From the city side of things, the motions that we passed, so this is from Tatiana, which thank you, Tatiana, for the update. The motions passed by E&E will be provided to Council for their review and consideration once a meeting has been scheduled to consider the draft cost sharing agreement with Chenier Canada Glass Limited. I know that tonight Get Concerned Stratford is hosting a meeting online, and Mike Sullivan, I believe you are leading that meeting. It's at 7 p.m. tonight. Do you want to say a couple things, Mike?
I can.
Yep.
I'm not leading. I'm part of the meeting.
Okay.
There have been a number of questions of council of the mayor that we will be reporting on, particularly the suggestion that there is now a binding letter of agreement between the city and Xinyi, whereas up until the 31st of December, the only information was that it was a non-binding letter of agreement. And we've asked, what does that mean? And the city's solicitor has told us we're not allowed to know. I'm not exactly sure what it means, because there's also a reference to the council having to approve something after the fact. So council apparently can still say no, even though it's now a binding letter of agreement. But it's really hard to know because the information is so vague, and so much of what took place 2.5 years ago, and we're only finding out about it now as things come to a head. So that's part of what the Get Concerned Stratford meeting will be about. We'll also be listening as we do. There's already over 600 people have RSVP'd to this meeting. So it's going to be one of the biggest Zoom meetings I've ever been involved in. We've also had meetings with the member of provincial parliament, Randy Pettipies, who advised us that the ministerial zoning order is not a final thing. If Stratford City Council asks the minister to rescind it, he will. But the council has to ask for it. And I don't know if council is going to do that. But we're going to talk about that as well tonight. There's also concern about whether or not Xinyi will be exempt from carbon taxes. There is a law passed by the Harper government in 2012 that gives investors from China protection against measures taken by governments in Canada to reduce their profitability. And we don't know if that applies to Mr. Trudeau's recently announced carbon tax. And I don't know if council knows the answer to that. I don't know if anybody really does know the answer to that. It would certainly be a shame if businesses here had to pay the carbon tax, but the new business that comes from China does not. There are also updates on the activities that we've been taking that we'll talk about tonight as well.
Thank you. So if you go to Get Concerned Stratford under announcements, you can see the link of where you can RSVP for tonight's meeting. Again, it's at 7. Yeah, did Jody or Bonnie, I don't know if you're both on council. I don't know if either one of you would like to speak to this at this point. Okay, so with Sammy, I'm going to turn it back to you in terms of the webinar. We've kind of touched on this in terms of our ongoing public education outreach. And so maybe it's largely going to be handled by the carbon reduction working group. But did you want to speak a little bit about the webinar plans, Sammy?
Oh, sorry about that. I'm just trying to unmute myself. As of now, it's still in like the idea process. We've still it was just an idea from Climate Momentum to have a webinar so that people can, and businesses, specific households and businesses can learn how to create a just and sustainable climate action plan for themselves. So right now we haven't pushed forward with anything, but I think it'd be great if the carbon reduction group took this on and did that. But yeah.
Okay, so it's safe to say that that's probably the first thing that the working group will start to work on. And Anne is going to be sending out an email to the whole committee to invite those that are interested to join a meeting, right? Okay. I am just opening my calendar for an update on tree power. So those of you who are new to the committee, Upper Thames has run a program called Tree Power in London for the past 10 years. And it's essentially, they partner with London Hydro there and provide reduced cost trees to residents. And so they've been doing it for 10 years. They provide a variety of native tree species for around $20 to $30 each, about 300 trees, and it sells out in minutes. So what we've been working on the past year or so is to bring that program here to Stratford. And we've partnered with Festival Hydro, who has agreed to sponsor the program. They're contributing $5,000, and we're going to be bringing 300 trees that will be up for purchase online prior to the Tree Power Days for residents to buy and then take home to their house to plant. So the dates for Tree Power, when we will be calling on enthusiastic volunteers, are Friday, April 9th, and Saturday, April 10th. We'll have all the full details to send around to the committee, but please mark those dates in your calendar. Where it will be happening is just by the dog park, right, Jody? Like that, the city property where there's lots of room for cars to load in and out, grab their tree. They did it this year in London with COVID-friendly practices in place, so we'll be able to do it safely. And because due to the success of the London program, we're thinking it won't be very difficult to get all 300 trees spoken for. So all of the promotion will be done largely online through the city and Festival Hydro as well. And Energy and Environment is a partner on this project. So that's something to keep in mind. Bonnie, do you have a question?
I know we're going to have a concern. There'll be some people that won't be able to do it online. Will they be able to phone in? And then we're probably going to have some people that are going to say they don't drive. I'm assuming what they do in London is they probably have a neighbor or a friend help them. I'm just trying to think ahead of questions that usually happen when we put something on. Like,
yeah, so online, the contact person is going to be an Upper Thames staff. So if somebody can't do it online, they can call Upper Thames, and they've dealt with every one of those imaginable concerns through the 10 years with London. And then for if people can't drive, we just said that Craig would deliver the trees to people in Stratford. No, but there have been, I mean, in the past, we've just found solutions. If someone, what we try to do is have people pick it up on the 9th or 10th. So send a friend, or if they really can't, we could, like one of us could drop it off at their house. Jody, I see you raised your hand.
Before you leave me, is there sort of instructions on how to plant a tree? Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's part of Craig's delivery. He plants it for you too.
Green side up, brown side down. That's it.
It's going to be off on WSIB after planting 300 trees.
Yeah. Jody, you had
I was just going to mention that part of the project also, there will be a separate website. So people will go and order, and all the information will be on that website. So then it'll be up to the rest of us partners to disseminate the information through social media. So like the city, through Mike, and then Festival Hydro will also be taking it on to promote as well, because they're sponsoring it too. So yeah, it's really coming together. I'm very excited.
Me too. It's an amazing project, and Festival Hydro seems like a really enthusiastic partner. They're going to send some of their staff as a bit of a team building, community outreach event. And the nice thing is that we aren't reinventing the wheel. So it's been done in London, and Upper Thames staff will be there. So it, knock on wood, should run fairly smoothly. So that's the tree power update. Mike, before I turn it to you, Mike Sullivan, I just under new business wanted to mention we did receive a letter that I think everyone received about the idling. Bear with me, I'm just opening it up. Did everyone receive that from Casey? Okay, sorry, I just have to update or open it myself. There it is.
While everybody's opening it, I can tell you that the last time I checked, there's never been a charge for anybody that's been idling. There's been some comments. And when I first got the idling bylaw in, I worked with the Stratford Festival, and they stopped all the buses because they used to line right up and come there. And then we had little booklets we gave the bus drivers. I think I still have some here somewhere. And it's through Enercan. I had taken, gone down to Toronto and took a one-day course on it. And part of my objective still, that hasn't happened yet, is that our buses are converted over. And in the other cities, what they've done is the buses are, other computers running, and well, I guess the manager of the bus thing can look right on, see if they're idling too long, if they're driving too fast. And I think it was Molson's Brewery, what they did was they worked with the union and they switched everything over. And they not only saved money from gas because people were driving the speed limit, and they could actually send out like a little ticker tape thing saying you've been idling too long, you're driving too fast. They also found that maintenance problems went way down, and they had less oil changes and different things. So it was really an effective program that worked. And well, that was in 2001. So it's, you know, we're slowly working away at it. But I think I had brought up, I don't know, several months ago about the idea of, I had got the model off of Kitchener, London, and Woodstock. No, Toronto, London, and Woodstock, and then tried to accommodate to Stratford for our size. But I know that Toronto has gone back in and changed theirs, because right now ours is 5 minutes. And then, you know, it depends on the weather, right? The temperature. So that could easily be changed. We could update that.
Well, and Bonnie, if you recall, in the climate action plan updates that we provided to Chris, it includes requesting a re-examination of the bylaw and starting to enforce it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to, personally, I think that that's going to be more effective than asking small businesses that are struggling and slowly dying through this pandemic to put up signs. I'm in no way it's in support of idling, but I just think that that is a more beneficial focus of our efforts. And small businesses that are running curbside pickups, which is what is happening with the majority of small businesses in Stratford. They're small businesses, they're struggling. And personally, I don't feel comfortable approaching them saying, so while you have your loyal customers wait for their products, can you also tell them to turn off their car? Mike Jorna.
What if we were willing to provide bumper stickers or signs that could be put on city vehicles, on the buses, maybe even on the police cruisers, and on anybody else that would like to put one on that just say, I'm concerned about carbon and shut off my vehicle when parked. That might, you know, cause people to buy into that as they read it. But you have to start somewhere, because most people are really not aware of anti-idling legislation or not even aware that it's a problem for them.
There are, I'll just quickly add, there are pamphlets that you can get from the city buildings that you can place on people's windows to advise them of the harmful effects of idling and also the bylaw in Stratford. Bonnie?
Yeah, when I was on Perth County Greenworks, we made up anti-idling, like you put them in your window. So if a person commits to actually sticking it on their window, there's more of a chance they will do it. Plus people going by your car can see it. You know, you usually put it on the driver's side, just remind you not to idle. And I mean, I know it's a hardship to say to businesses, you know, not to be idling, but maybe we could send out a message through Mike about idling, because when I did the bylaw, anytime I went anywhere after that, I always turned my car off. And it didn't matter if it was in the winter, we're sitting talking for 30 minutes. You know, you just have your winter coat and your mitts and stuff on. And like, you know, there's ways around it. You can still be okay. Like if they're just pulling up and they're waiting for their product, they can shut it off. I mean, I even do it if there's a long train. I mean, it was just part of doing that. And when I go out and start my car, I not even 30 seconds and I just drive slowly away because it's actually better for your car. So it's just getting all that out there. So there's if you go in the city clerk's office, they have the little vinyl sticker things, and they also have the anti-idling, I think they're green in there. I mean, we made up a lot back then. We got a grant and we got a bunch of, you know, the things made up. So I mean, they're still around after 10 years. So, but I mean, there was people at that time going around, and if they saw people idling, they would sit and they'd go knock on their window and say, here's something to read while you're sitting idling, and then walk away. Kind of dangerous in one way, but it was, you know, effective and trying to educate people about not idling. And I mean, there's people that just do it. But I mean, anything we can do to promote it, it's a great idea. I'm willing to help out.
Well, I just want to clarify, I'm not pro idling. I don't idle, but maybe it can start with this committee by getting those bumper stickers, put them on our car and a handful of the pamphlets and start passing them out. Anna? Oh, and I also wrote it down as one of the things that we could have as our education point, regular updates.
No, all I was going to suggest is that I know, I mean, our small businesses are really, you know, it's a real struggle to survive. But I mean, I imagine that many are members of the business association or the Chamber of Commerce. It's an easy thing to just put it on their websites. They all have websites, and they could just say, reminder, when you're picking up, we have an idling bylaw, please turn your car off. So that wouldn't be such a hardship to ask people to put it on their instructions for curbside pickup. I mean, they may not be able to put up a sign, but they, you know, they do have they have websites where it could just be put there.
Bonnie?
I was going to say, it's not a bad idea if we email the BIA or even the Chamber of Commerce, and they could send a little note out to anybody, because all the little restaurants can say, when you're coming for takeout, don't forget the idling bylaw. I mean, it could be a little simple thing they put on there. Then they don't have to go out and do anything. And if a little message is done up, they can all post the same thing. So it's the same message, and I think it's worthwhile suggesting it. I'm sure a lot of the restaurants and different ones in town would be open to that. Because, you know, you go pick up at Swiss Chalet, you go pick up at the Hub, Gillies, all the different places, Freelands. I mean, I'm turning it off at Freelands because you have to go inside and get it, right? But I think it's a good idea.
Okay, who wants to reach out to the City Center Committee with that suggestion? Bonnie, that's you volunteer? Sure.
Okay, I'll do it.
Vonnie?
Can I suggest, if we're doing that, to link it to something, just don't idle? Like, can we put in like, did you know that?
I can put it to the
minutes of idling or 5 minutes of idling causes this, or some effect or something that not just
we can
don't
put the city
idle.
website on, like the link on the city website for the bylaw.
Well, and also, Bonnie, to your point, the fact that the climate, the GHG emissions report that Rebecca did identify transportation as the highest.
Link it to something local.
So it's something, it's a small action that individuals can take to try to reduce our GHG emissions, because the city did declare a climate emergency.
And it is a small action that doesn't affect you not idling, right?
Agreed. Jody, did you have something to say?
Yeah, idling does actually really irritate me, but with COVID-19, it's really hard to have both things. Like, for instance, we have a drive-in theater now that and of course we want that, but now that it's colder, like when it came up, I was like, oh, all that idling. So it's kind of a hard balance, I think, to decide, you know, if you're going to have people sitting there and it's very cold and they're going to be there for an hour and a half, they're going to need to have their cars on. So that's one consideration. I happen to live backing onto a business with a parking lot. It's actually an optometry, and they're not allowing people that drive people to appointments to go in. So in my backyard, there's regularly cars idling with people sitting in them because they can't go in with whoever it is that they brought to an appointment. So as much as it irritates me, I'm like, well, where can those people go if they're waiting for somebody who's gone inside to an appointment? So it's a really hard one during COVID times. I don't know what the solution is, but it's just, those are some things that we have to kind of consider as we try to balance these decisions.
Well, I can tell you this last 2 weeks since I hurt my back again, Linda's been driving me everywhere, and she sits and she does not idle. She said the other day I was an hour, so she said I ended up turned on a couple times, but other than that, she sat there. I mean, we really can do it. You know, we all got winter coats and boots and hats, and it's just a matter of thinking, okay, I'm going to be going somewhere, I'm going to be sitting. And I know that's a hard sell when you're not an environmentalist or thinking about that, but there's a lot of people that do think about that.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, what I'll do is follow up with the person that sent this letter to the committee, Pat, because I think that's proper protocol, and just advise them on the climate action plan and the materials that are available at the city, and also thank them for bringing this to our attention, that it's something that we're taking into consideration. Okay, Mike Sullivan, I'm going to turn it over to you for new business. You have 2 items.
And 3 actually, but I'll. First one, it dovetails with the talk earlier about the tree power thing, and that is that we should hook ourselves up with the federal government's $2 billion tree planting initiative, because there will be money, there will be expertise, there will be helping with planning where trees should go and what they're looking for. And if you went on the website I linked, you could listen to the entire presentation or just download their PowerPoint from the organization. And I think the city of Stratford is perfectly placed to form a partnership to receive trees, to receive seedlings, and to begin planting them. 2 billion trees is a lot of trees. That's the size of Prince Edward Island. And to plant them, they should have been planting them at the rate of 5 per second since last October. They haven't planted any yet. But they've set aside $4.5 billion to do this. So that means there's $250 per tree that's been, $2.25 per tree that's been set aside by the federal government to pay for this. So we should be able to take advantage of it because we already have a plan. But I'm not exactly, new to this committee, I don't know how this is going to work, whether this is a City of Stratford initiative, or whether we as a committee recommend to the city to take on this because there'll be some cost, or whether the committee as part of its budget has to take this on. And I realize we don't have a whole lot of time tonight, so I'll just throw that out there for people to think about till the next meeting, because there's not anybody going to be planting any trees anytime soon. The energy conference in Kingston, I've been to before. It is a lot of really interesting speakers talking about a lot of energy and the environment issues as it relates to cities and cities becoming carbon neutral. Some of the speakers are people that I don't agree with, like the head of the Nuclear Association of Ontario, but we certainly can listen to their point of view. It's $149. It's a full weekend conference, 26th and 27th. It's by Zoom or by some kind of electronic means. And usually it's a chance for industry people who are selling stuff to get together and talk to one another, and to talk to people who are buying stuff. So that's municipalities, the province, the federal government, etc. That's more difficult given that this is somehow on Zoom. I don't know how it's going to work, but I would recommend that somebody from this group go. And it's $149. The last thing on my list is I was looking over council minutes for a different purpose and realized that City Council is approving housing tracts, quite substantially sized housing tracts within the City of Stratford boundaries. And I understand that there will be more housing developments, because Stratford is a very desirable place to be. And wouldn't it be nice if the City of Stratford had zoning rules that required these new developments to be carbon neutral? It's not impossible. The federal government is setting up a code, a building code for net zero. They call it net zero ready. I think we're past that. We should be dealing with net zero homes now. But what's being built today is the same as what was being built 25 years ago. Nothing has changed. The houses that are going to go into that tract are all going to be heated with natural gas and insulated to the minimum allowable under the law. And that's just, in my view, not enough. My delightful view would be that the City of Stratford becomes Canada's leader in attracting builders who will build homes on these pieces of land that are so desirable and so efficient that they require almost no energy to run. And that becomes the norm, and that we lead Canada in that field. Now, because the government hasn't yet written the building code, there's an opportunity for City of Stratford to partner with the federal government on the building code that they're writing. And there will be money from the federal government to build net zero homes. They haven't announced it yet, but we should encourage, and this is, I guess, a recommendation to council, we should be encouraging council to move in that direction ahead of there being money. And maybe council, in order to encourage builders, has to find ways of easing the burden on development charges or on taxation. But those are things that cleverer minds than I can figure out in order to encourage people to come. And that's my opinion. I don't know if the rest of the committee agrees with me, but it would be a pretty remarkable thing to do. So those are my three things on the agenda. And I apologize that they're right at the end and we don't have time to discuss them, but people can think about them for a month.
Well, I just wanted to say, in years past, there's a passive house near the library in Stratford that the committee has toured with the owners who are slowly retrofitting their house to meet passive requirements. And the feedback then was that the current zoning regulations or zoning system at City of Stratford was not at all helpful for them to do this. So your point, I mean, is absolutely correct that there's lots of room for improvement. So I wonder if there's a motion there. You mentioned about two things where it would require the city partnering with the government on the trees initiative and the housing. And I wonder if those are motions that we could pass tonight. And then in the interim, kind of look into it more. Like the trees thing, we'd have to figure out where they would go, because in the past we've heard that the city of Stratford feels like there isn't room for more trees, but maybe there is in the county. So iron out those details. But do you think there's a motion for each of those points that we could pass tonight?
Bonnie has her hand up.
Bonnie.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm really excited about the housing thing, because several of us on the committee were involved with, I can't think of his name, from Woodstock. They've gone to net
David
zero.
Mayberry.
Yeah, David Mayberry. And we actually had him come, and I arranged to have him come and speak at, we have what they call Municipal Day. And so the county and St. Mary's and all the counselors and staff and that come. And so we actually had him come and speak. So that was 2 years ago, I think. And so I believe we made a motion at that time for staff to start to look into that. But, you know, they had this long list of things that they're working on, and then they've had a lot of change in their department. But I think it's really important that we start working on it. And I think that's why it's going to be another reason it's important that we have a climate coordinator helping us out. Because things like this, because the accessibility committee has been trying to get a zoning bylaw change that so many homes in each new development have to be accessible, and then other groups like social service and that trying to get them more affordable, because the Northwest plan's like 12,400 people, I think, approximately out there, and they've already done about, I want to say, 8 projects just since I've been on council. Like they're doing, there's 2 right now going on in the north and south, and there's another one being approved. Like there's a lot of development going on, and so to start doing that, and I wonder if we could have a small committee of that, and maybe we could get somebody from Sava to be involved, because you need to have their, like anytime I've gone as a counselor to anything or they come to council, I always bring it up. I haven't brought up with the net zero part, but I bring up the affordable or accessible, or somebody else on council does, either Jody or Kathy or Danielle, any of us that are sort of very interested in that. And I know when I used to go at the Arden Park there, and they would have like Saba people would be there, and so I'd go and talk to them. We don't get invited to those anymore, but I mean, go and talk to them about having things more affordable, more accessible. I didn't know about the net zero part, but I mean, Woodstock is amazing. They just built an affordable housing unit, and it cost them a lot more. It's 100% net zero, and it was passed unanimously by council. So I mean, those things are possible. They're like 2-tiered there, so they've got both on board there doing that. And we went over and we toured their city hall, saw the green roof, and we had a great meeting with. They're very excited to come and help us with anything, because part of this net zero thing is, my understanding is that everybody's to do the same thing. Not everybody's supposed to start developing new rules and all these stuff. You follow the same plan, everybody, so that all the municipalities end up the same, right? But I got all that right, Jody. Were you at that meeting? I can't remember if you went to Woodstock or not.
No, I went to Woodstock to see the passive.
Yeah, the passive house on
passive.
Birmingham Street. Yeah, right at the bottom of the hill there. Okay, so maybe it was Kathy, and I'm trying to think who went. But anyway, yes, it'd be great to get that going.
The next member of council has just joined us.
Yeah, this is our 3rd new member of the committee. So sorry, I had to pop out and grab her, but is there a motion that we can pass tonight, just knowing that there's another month before our next meeting and there's some tight deadlines on this?
The only thing that is
do not make motions.
the only thing that is a real tight deadline is the energy conference, which doesn't really matter. I mean, if somebody wants to go, they can go. It's $149.
Oh, you're muted, Mike.
Sorry.
It's okay.
The trees, nothing's going to happen right away. So that we can put off a month. If people are really excited about urging council to not approve any more developments until energy efficiencies are part of the zoning plan, then I'm willing to make that motion.
Are you saying you're making a motion that no more plans can be passed until it's done? Because that'll
That's what
take
I'm saying.
probably years.
There are builders out there who want to do this. Trust me. There are builders, but they can't compete because they have no, because the guy down the street is building cheaper. So if everybody in Stratford has to build the same, and Stratford is a desirable location, builders will figure out how to do it.
More discussion on that motion? Do I do a second or more discussion, Jody? Or Casey, sorry. Which do I have to do first?
You need a seconder.
Need a seconder.
Okay, do I have a seconder for Mike Sullivan's motion?
I would second it if you changed it a bit, because I think we'll get more ground and power, because you have to remember we're only 31,665 people here. So, and we have a small department. So in order for this to happen, like, I don't know how we would have any teeth to say that no development goes on in the city until it's looked at. I personally, I don't understand that.
I'm not saying that a development that has already been approved doesn't go on. I'm saying that no new approvals happen until there is an energy component. And I deliberately didn't say net zero. I said an energy component to the zoning bylaw.
I would like to know if we can even actually do something like that.
We can recommend it. And then the city can tell us no.
Anna, I see your
Can I
hand up.
just ask, I mean, is this not part of I can't remember everything that was in the climate action plan that we submitted to the city, but certainly we talked about reducing carbon emissions in housing in the plans we put forward. And it's part of being in a climate emergency declaration state. So it's not, I mean, and it's part of what Rebecca is going to be talking about too. Emissions from homes are a big issue. So it's not as though it's not out there already on the table. So this would just be emphasizing the issue and putting some teeth into some of these ideas we already put forward.
I don't think that's a bad idea, though, putting some emphasis on it. Sometimes they need a bit of a kick to get things kick-started again, or reminders. So I support that.
I see Mike Jordan's hand up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Mike, that we get the city to get going on building standards that lead to net zero. You started your comments, though, by talking about the fact that the city is about to approve some new tracts of housing. And tracts of housing, to me, are clusters of housing on raw land. And one of the things that's always been in my head is that right now with infrastructure, we connect every house in the city with water delivery. We connect them with sewer disappearance. Why can't we, with a tract, provide every house in the tract with heat coming from a common ground source? And if the city is about to approve attractive housing, then maybe the very first thing they should do is to get their heads together and maybe use the entire space under the roadway that are going to run through that tract as buried piping for heat sources. We can deliver heat to a house just as well as we can deliver water. It's all a matter of just planning the infrastructure. I hear Bonnie saying that, well, gee, you know, there's a lot of builders, a lot of smaller places that are sort of in the midst of their process, and I can understand that. But at some point, the city has to get busy on planning for net zero standards, because if they don't, the resolution that they've made for themselves doesn't really count for a lot. And I think what I would like to recommend, Mike, is that we all give this some thought for the next month, and maybe make this the point of the entire discussion for the meeting next month, because this is such a big item and such a huge potential thing that I think we should have some real preparation before we discuss it, and then go and get busy and get the city, A, re-examining its housing standards, B, start planning common heat sources from ground source heat. How does that sound to you, Mike?
It sounds wonderful. I don't, because we got to the 59th minute of the meeting, I really didn't have time to put together a good motion, and I think this will give everybody a chance to think about it for a month. And nothing's going to change. The city's not going to approve any more housing tracts this month, so I don't think. Bonnie and Jody can tell me, but I don't think so. I know there was a big one in the fall, but
The only one coming is the one at the fairgrounds that I'm aware of.
and it's not ready for.
It's
a vote.
already on the go.
Yeah, it's
already
coming to January meeting, is it? Or is it the 1st of February? It was put off, it was deferred to get some answers for the residents that live near there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, and that one's really too far gone, I think, to start doing this too, but maybe it's not. Anyway, let's talk about it next month. I agree. Let's defer this motion till next month.
What I'll do in the meantime is look up what we had included in the draft climate action plan in terms of housing, because we had some break-off groups that worked on residential. So I can send that around around to the committee before our next meeting too. So we know what we've already kind of recommended. Okay. Let me see my agenda. That is everything other than upcoming events. Sammy, you have an upcoming event?
I just have one thing for new business. I know we're running a little late, so I'll keep it short. First, I'd like to mention that I would be in support of what Mike brought up. We could be a leader. The houses wouldn't need to be net zero right away, because that would be very difficult, but we could be a leader in effective and sustainable housing, which I think would be amazing. But the new business that I would like to bring up is that me and a lady named Vicky Lass, we started talking about a plastic or a reusable program, because all of the plastic waste with the takeout containers, it's obviously grown because people are taking out now instead of dining in. So there are many projects around the globe, and a couple in Toronto actually, that's the ones we heard of, that we were interested in replicating here in Stratford, so that they would be like metal or reusable containers that businesses could use instead of the plastic, or compostable is still good, but they still get thrown out. So these reusable ones would be even better. We haven't got any concrete plans yet, but we were looking to have a community meeting in the middle of January sometime. And we just want to know if the Energy Environment Committee would be interested in coming into that meeting.
Yeah, I don't see why not. And I think Kate Simpson should be there. The big hurdle will be public health. That's the big hurdle for restaurants using reusable takeout containers.
Yeah, so we would talk about that at the meeting. We haven't really talked about anything yet, except we really want to have like community involvement for the entire process. So that's why we're starting at square one with a meeting. But we also thought that with the programs that are happening, Toronto launched one, I think, a couple weeks ago. So we can look into how they're doing it.
That'd be really interesting to hear, because with the health unit, they're not even letting you take the mugs into Tim Hortons to get your coffee put in it right now, right? So that would be really good to hear what how the Toronto's doing it.
Mm-hmm. Please do.
It's worthwhile looking at, you know, like moving ahead, like holy. The same as the house thing. Like I totally understand the point now, because the motion I was thinking, oh my gosh, but yeah, you got to start somewhere.
And we're running out of time for the meeting and for all of these actions. So thank you, Sammy. Let me flip back to my agenda. Upcoming events. Date of the next meeting is February 4th. A reminder of the Get Concerned meeting tonight in an hour. Bonnie, did you want to say something?
The letter that we got where Shani wanted to be part of our next meeting, are we going to deal with that?
I haven't received that as a committee member. Tatiana?
Through the chair, staff are reviewing and will be in contact with you, Emily, to discuss the delegation request.
So I will advise all of you about that and see what the possible next steps are.
Sorry, I thought it came out to all the committee members.
Nope. Okay, date of the next meeting, motion to adjourn. See, one hand from Mike Jordan and 2 hands from Mike Sullivan.
That's moved and seconded.
Yeah, by the mics. Emily, do you want to vote in favor? All in favor? All right, thanks guys. Welcome to 2021 and the committee.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emily.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the new members.